Okay, well, it is the top of the hour, so we will go ahead and get started. I want to respect everybody's time this afternoon, but thank you guys for joining me today on today's webinar. This is specifically designed for Aire Serv franchises. So we've been working with a lot of Aire Serv franchises recently, and we put a playbook together, and so I kind of wanted to share that with you guys. So if you are tuning in today, or if you know somebody that may need our services, feel free to send them this webinar. We're going to send out the link afterwards, and feel free to send it out to them. We would love to kind of see how they're doing in their business, and maybe we can help them out as well. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Joni Wolfswinkel. And I actually am a franchise owner myself. So my husband and I own two real property management franchises. We also used to own a Mr. Rooter franchise. We sold that this past summer, but kind of right there alongside with you, working in the trenches, right? Been in business now for actually franchise owners for the last 16 years, actually in business though for 25 years. So we've seen a lot of things. And I will say that one of our biggest challenges early on was being able to grow profitably, right? Which is maybe something that you guys are struggling with right now. And over the last, I would say 10 years or so, we've kind of figured it out. And one piece of that is actually hiring globally. So, we have hired in Mexico. So a lot of our remote teams are in Mexico, and they do a lot of the back end stuff for our franchises, which, at the end of the day, we look at our profits, and we are so much more profitable because we're not having to pay out in payroll for on-site employees. And so that's what we're doing now is we're kind of giving back and showing other franchises. So we've helped many other neighborly franchises, your franchises yourself, Aire Serv, as well as Mr. Rooters, Mr. Handyman, all of them, right? And so I'm showing you ways how you can keep more of your profits in your pocket. And that one of that way is to hire globally. So that's just a little bit about myself. I wanted to start by asking a few questions, and maybe you can kind of reflect on these questions as well. So how many of you feel like revenue is going up, but profits aren't keeping up, right? When was the last time you reviewed where every dollar in your operation is going? Maybe you guys have never really looked at that. And maybe it's time that you actually dive a little deeper into that and see, where is my profits actually really going? If your expenses increase 10% tomorrow, would your margins survive? And the last question I want you to ask yourself is, do you know your true cost per job or service call? Every dollar that you bring in, do you know how much of that is going out, right? How much are you actually keeping as profits? Okay, those are the questions you should really ask yourself, right? And I talk to a lot of franchise and a lot of Aire Serv franchises, and I hear the stories like, hiring is so difficult, right? I don't have the right people. And sure, you probably don't have the right person for the right seat. And we see that a lot. Most Aire Serv owners think that they have a staffing problem or a call volume problem, right? It's always marketing's fault, or a tech problem, right? These are the things that most Aire Serv franchises think that they have. But what they really actually have is a revenue capture problem, or a scheduling optimization problem, or a system execution problem, and maybe a combination of all three of those, right? And so it really depends on hiring the right person for the right seat, guys. And I'll go a little deeper into that. But remote CSRs and dispatchers directly impact booking rate, revenue per truck, overtime, customer experience, right? Review volume, and owner burnout. It's not about adding to your payroll. It's about protecting your margins, right? And so it's extremely important to make sure that we have the right person for the right seat to be able to capture all of this, right? If not, you're just losing margin. You're just throwing money out the window. And then at the end of the year, you look at it like, man, Where'd all my money go, right? Well, I had the wrong person as the CSR. I had the wrong person as a dispatcher, okay? And then you get stuck or maybe sucked back into the business and doing it yourself because you figure, you know what, if they can't do it, you're going to do it yourself, right? But you should be thinking higher level and growing the business. And how can you grow the business when you're stuck in the weeds? Okay. So I kind of wanted to share with you kind of what it looks like when you hire in-house versus remote team members and kind of put that into perspective. So when you're hiring in-house employees, an average in-house employee is most likely going to cost you about $20 to $30 an hour, right? And that's factoring in the taxes, the benefits, everything that's included, even the office space, the equipment, everything included into hiring that one person, right? Not to mention the training, not to mention the onboarding, all the things that you have to do when you hire an employee, right? Which it costs, it adds up. The $20 to $30 an hour, it adds up. And so you can typically have one person, which is mainly a CSR dispatcher, because you can't afford to hire another because that's eating into your profits. Imagine if you hired 2 to 5 remote team members for the price of what you pay for one key employee. Ask yourself, how much more could you grow, right? You can afford to grow and put money in marketing because you have the bandwidth and you have the people helping you on the back end. Okay, so I want you to put that in perspective, right? So why do most hiring fail? And it gets really expensive. So these are the 3 most expensive hiring mistakes. Number 1, you know somebody, you know a friend that needs a job, so you're hiring them, right? You don't have no clue if they have the right skill set for the position or not. You're basically just filling the role because you need somebody now. Guys, that is a number 1 hiring mistake, okay? Number 2, hiring for personality instead of performance. How many of you guys have hired somebody and say, you know what, I really like this person, so I'm going to go ahead and hire them. They seem nice, right? But you have no idea if they have the skill set, and you have no idea if they can do the job, right? And the third one is under training and hoping for the best. And I actually see a lot of that. In fact, I think I heard there was a call recently where, a CSR dispatcher, the call didn't go well, right? But I'm a firm believer that you always have to put training on the forefront, right? You have to always be training. If you are not training or you're not coaching, then how can your team members get better? Okay. A lot of you say, oh, they'll figure it out, sink or swim, right? And believe me, I used to think that myself. I used to put people in roles, not train them, not coach them, not give them ongoing feedback. And then 3 months down the road, I say, oh my gosh, this person is terrible. Why did I hire this person? When all I needed to do was look at myself and say, you know what, you didn't give them the tools that they needed to be successful, right? You didn't train them, you didn't coach them, you didn't give them ongoing feedback. Guys, I can give you the best talented remote team member, and I've placed many team members across Neighborly, but if you are not practicing and you're not coaching them and training them along the way, it doesn't matter who you hire, in-house or remote, they are not going to work, okay? You're going to keep burning employees, okay? You're going to keep having turnover, okay? Every one of these guys cost you margin. So let's talk about what a weak CSR actually costs you. So average ticket is $900, right? So if you missed 5 of those calls, that $900, that equals $4,500 in lost opportunity. Weak booking rate. So if they are not picking up those phones and they have a low booking rate, that's 20 to 30% revenue left on the table. Poor membership conversion. A lot of you, upsell on your membership. That equals unstable reoccurring revenue. And as business owners, we stand on reoccurring revenue, right? We love recurring revenue. Incomplete notes equals tech inefficiency, which means poor customer service, right? Poor call tone. Again, poor customer service, lower reviews. Remote CSRs are revenue roles, okay? And what does a weak dispatcher cost you? Inefficient routing, tech frustration, low same-day conversion, lost emergency opportunity, right? Being able to prioritize. So if you had a call that came in where you were to replace an HVAC unit versus service a unit, what should be the higher priority? Probably the replacement, right? Because that's more revenue. And the last one is owners stepping back into dispatch because they can't trust their dispatch that they can do a good job. Dispatch controls capacity and capacity controls revenue. So let's talk about what our top performing Aire Serv franchises do differently. Number one, they hire around KPIs, not tasks. And if you heard the term KPI before, that is a key performance indicator. Okay, so there's metrics around them, right? They just don't say answer the phone, sink or swim, go for it, right? We actually have KPIs, which are key performance indicators attached to them. So for example, we say maintain a 90% booking rate or 90% plus booking rate, or hit membership conversion targets, support X amount of revenue per truck per day, reduce overtime by X percentage. Okay, so these are examples of KPIs that you can use in your business. All right, and I've helped many franchises over the years, including Aire Serv franchises, actually, kind of create their KPIs because they're not really sure what to create, right? So I've helped many of them. And just know that it's 3 to 5 KPIs is a perfect number. Don't try to measure too much, okay? Because you'll get frustrated. So what you need to do is you need to measure the most important parts of the business, okay? Remember, if you can't measure it, you can't scale it, right? So another thing that we see our Aire Serv franchises do differently, our top performing ones, is they hire for traits, not just experience. So for example, for remote CSRs, they are a confident communicator. They're comfortable guiding conversation. They're sales aware, so they can do some sales, right? But they're not too pushy where they're going to lose the deal either. They're calm under upset customers. They can think on their feet and turn that customer around, right? And fast in systems. Because in this business, we are in multiple systems, Service Titan, right? We use Service Titan for everything. And so they have to be able to maneuver around in the systems. They hire, another one is they hire for traits, not just experience. So for remote dispatchers, it's pattern recognition, calm under chaos, decisive, assertive with text. Sometimes we need to be assertive with text, right? Revenue aware scheduling, which is an example I gave earlier. So HVAC experience is helpful, but performance mindset is critical. So oftentimes I get franchises that come to me and say, Joni, do you have somebody that has experience in HVAC? And I will always go back to this. It doesn't matter if they've had experience in HVAC. Some of my top performing remote team members have never had experience in property management, right? What they had though is they had the mindset, the performance mindset, okay? And so we place them based on skill set, and we can get really close to what we need depending on what we are hiring for, whether it's a CSR or it's a dispatcher. So another thing that our top performing Aire Serv franchises do differently is delegation versus dumping. And I'll explain the two, what the difference between delegation and dumping really is. So delegation, clear KPIs, key performance indicators, which we talked about earlier, clear authority, clear structure. And the fourth one is ongoing feedback, okay? So again, if you want a successful team member, it doesn't matter whether it's in-house or remote, these are the things that you need to focus on if you want to delegate. That ongoing feedback is crucial. Why? Because if you really want to see them succeed in their role, you have to provide them feedback, listen to their calls, okay? Maybe you should do it this way or say it this way, rather than letting them go and try to figure it out themselves and them creating a mess. Okay, that's just dumping. And that's my next one, dumping, which a lot of us do. Handle the phones. I'm too busy, just pick up the phone. They have no idea what they're doing. There's no scripts, no tracking, no coaching, no live calls to go over how they performed on that call, right? They're just go do it. That's dumping, folks. And dumping will never get you anywhere. It won't get you far, okay? Remember that remote teams magnify your systems. So if your system is weak, chaos scales faster, and it does. So how to hire smart remote team members? Number one, you want to vet for performance. So you must test the booking confidence, objection handling, right? If they get an objection, do they know how to handle that? Tone control, decision speed, system agility. And resumes don't necessarily show this. And oftentimes, even interviewing, you can interview them and they seem great, and that doesn't necessarily show that either, right? But you have to test for these things if you want a really good one. All right, let's talk about the next thing to hire smart is having a structured onboarding. I will tell you that the onboarding make or break you, right? And that's how you know if your remote team member is going to succeed or not is based on your onboarding. So what should your onboarding look like? Let's talk about that. So week one, you should be going over scripts. If you have certain scripts in your business, you want to go over those scripts, right? And you might say, scripts, I don't like scripts. And it sounds canned, or it sounds, like they're a robot. No, everybody, I have scripts in my business, okay? It's good to have, even though they might not read it verbatim, it's good to have scripts in front of them so they know how to handle that call. Service time workflow, shadowing. I am huge on shadowing, right? Because we want to make sure they get a good foundation of what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. And so shadowing other team members is crucial. So that's week one. Week two, supervise live calls. So you may be on, next to your remote team member, or let them have the call in service time, and then you go back and listen to that recorded call. All right, and then you're going to give them coaching based on that live call, right? Tell them what they're doing good and what they could improve on. Always give a positive before you give the negative, okay? KPI tracking begins. So you really need to set a set of KPI metrics before you hire somebody, so you know exactly what to measure. You're going to set those expectations with the remote team member up front, right? So they know what to expect when they're in their role. Week three, performance coaching. This is where the ongoing feedback comes into play, guys. Okay. Call reviews, revenue awareness. All right. These are all the things that you are going to do in the onboarding process, and it's got to be structured. Okay. Without structure, it fails. And that's the bottom line. It fails. And then it just sounds a lot like just dumping, like go do it, sink or swim. And then everybody gets frustrated at the end of the day because it didn't work. Okay, so take this seriously. And I want you to be honest with yourself. And the reason why most franchise owners don't execute this right at the beginning is because you don't have time to do it, right? You are pulled in a million different directions, with clients, with team members, with maybe corporate, with training, all the things. You just don't have time. You don't have time to sort through 100 resumes. You don't have time to run performance simulations to make sure that they have the skill set needed for that job. You don't have time to train on service tie-in. You don't have time to coach. You don't have time to even create the metrics, right? Let's be honest. So when it becomes, hiring becomes very reactive and expensive because you have to keep doing it over and over again, right? Until hopefully you get that one that actually works. Okay. But so I'm going to go through what TWL does differently, and why our customers love us so much is because we do a lot of that for you. And the front end, we make sure that we are finding the right candidates with the right skill set needed for that job. We test them, we vet them on the front end, so you don't have to worry about sorting through all of that. Okay, you can walk in, we can set the interviews for you. You can choose from the people that we chose that have the skill set. And so you're really hiring for a culture fit. Okay. So we hire remote CSRs, which are revenue drivers, and remote dispatchers, which are schedule optimizers, just built for Aire Serv companies. So what does hiring for the role look like? Number one, we source high performance candidates. Okay. Again, the candidates that meet what we're looking for in terms of skill set. We vet communication skills. Communication skills is huge, and probably one of the biggest number one questions I get is, do your remote team members, are they, do they have great communication skills? Yes. I would not hire them for my company, so why would I hire them for your company, right? We got to make sure that they communicate well, because they are going to be speaking to your customers. They are going to be speaking to your dispatchers, so you want to have good communication skills. Screen sales comfort. Are they comfortable making those sales calls, picking up the phone? Because if they're not, when that phone rings and they don't answer the phone, you are just throwing away money, okay? Test decision making, right? Because oftentimes we have to make those decisions quickly. And if they're indecisive about things, that makes it hard, right, to be able to do that. Evaluate system speed, making sure that they can navigate through all the different platforms that you have, because you might not just have the service tie-in, you might have other things that you want them to follow, right? So they have to be able to navigate through the systems quickly. And assess CSR and dispatcher fit. Guys, not everybody's a good fit for a dispatcher or a CSR, okay? So remember, instead of hiring people or bodies to fill a role, really we got to make sure that they are the right fit for the position. Then we send you 1 to 3 candidates, pre-qualified candidates, not 25 maybes, right? These are actually solid candidates that meet what we're looking for in terms of skill set. So I'm going to share with you our predictive index personality assessment. So we use this when we vet our candidates, because we want to make sure before we bring them in for interviews, before we interview them on our side and test them, that they meet what we're looking for in terms of skill set. So this is an example of an Aire Serv dispatcher, which is a promoter. So their behavioral, they are collaborative, they're driving, they're flexible, they're independent, they're sociable, so they like talking to people, they're steady. Okay. And so this is kind of what we look for when we are vetting our candidates. And it goes a little bit deeper. All right, so they are extroverted, they're outgoing, their social orientation, enthusiastic, persuasive. Persuasive, you need that as a salesperson, right? So this is how we know that we can get really close to the candidate that we need. We test before placement, okay? So CSRs are tested on booking ability, objection handling, call flow control, and membership positioning. So we are looking at all these things before we say, hey, these are great candidates for our Aire Serv franchises to vet and to interview for the next steps of possibly working for your company. Okay, so we vet on the front end even before we bring them to you. We train for the role. So assuming when we bring the candidates to you, you say, Joni, I want that candidate is great, let's move forward with that candidate. We bring them in and we actually start training with them, okay? And I'll explain the training process because a lot of my Aire Serv franchise, they say, well, what's involved in the training? So we are gonna give them the basic training, right, in service taking. And we're also going to give them basic training, you know, when answering live calls, all the things. But really, part of our training is also the shadowing. So we are choosing a rock star remote team member, somebody that is doing amazing in their position as a CSR and a dispatcher, or you know, both. And we are having your new RTM shadow with that rock star remote team member. What that does, guys, it gives them a good foundation of what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis, and they can also ask questions to whoever's shadowing them, okay? That is huge, and I feel that anytime we do that, and when we do that, the remote team members already set up for success because they've already had those expectations laid out for them, okay? So before they go live, some of the things that they go through is call framework, de-escalation training, booking psychology, membership positioning, service titan navigation, workflow documentation, and dispatch board strategy. Okay, they are prepared before representing your brand. Okay. I talked a little bit about the shadowing. So when we do they'll shadow a high-performing RTM. They'll listen to real booking calls. They'll watch real dispatch boards. They'll learn tone and execution, and they'll see revenue-focused thinking, okay? And they'll have an opportunity to ask questions as they're going through that with the remote team member that they're shadowing. So let's talk about the service tie-in specific training. So what we train on is booking correctly, proper note entry, dispatch board logic, and job prioritization. And really what this prevents, guys, it prevents tech frustration, incomplete notes, schedule inefficiency, and revenue gaps, okay? And I always say this, that whenever we place for your company or our serve companies, we don't just place and say, see you later, guys. We place, that is it. We are here to support you long-term, okay? So for you, if you come to us and say, you know what, I need KPI guidance. I'm really not sure, you know, what KPIs I should be measuring. And so we will go through that with you and say, okay, what are the most important KPIs in your business that we need to focus on? Optimization feedback, strategic adjustments. So say that a lot of times my newer Aire Serv franchises, they'll hire a remote team member for both CSR and dispatcher, which is pretty common, right? That can be done. But as they grow and scale, they're like, okay, we've grown a little bit. Now we're to the place where we need to go ahead and separate the two roles, right? And so we come in and give you strategic advice on what maybe your next play will be. And then for the RTM, they're also going to have the same support. They will have their support manager. And so at any time you need our assistance with the ongoing training or coaching, we can step in. We can step in and do the 30, 60, 90-day reviews, right? Which is something you should be doing when you hire a new, whether it's an in-house employee or a remote team member, you always have to have those reviews. So we can step in and do that for the remote team member. Call review refinement, dispatch performance support. And really what we're doing is we're catching it early before it becomes a bigger mistake and it costs you more. Okay, and so we are actually going to work closely with you guys to say, hey, how is your remote team member doing? Is there any additional support that they need from us? Because we want you to be successful in this. And we understand that you are busy. There's a ton of different things that you're doing throughout the day. And so we want to try to help support that so you're not pulled in a million different directions. However, I will say that you still have to make time to train with them. One practice that I do and still today, I did it back 10 years ago and I still do it today, is I meet with my remote team members every single morning, the first 15 minutes of the day, right? Just to get out, how is our day going? Do you have any stucks? What's maybe some of our priorities for the day? And then at the end of the day, do the same thing. At the end of the day, you want to talk about, all right, how did the day go? Any stucks from the day? So that way it puts us in a position to start our next day right? So make that a habit, be disciplined about it, and you'll be fine, okay? So let's keep in mind the real outcome. So remote done right equals margin protection, right? So if you want to keep more profits in your pocket, guys, do the things that I'm talking about today. When structured correctly, you get higher booking rates, you get strong membership growth, improve revenue per truck, lower overtime, less owner involvement, clear operations. And when everybody is clear on what they have to do, then that's when you grow and scale profitably. Okay, so I want to make sure that you understand that this is not about cheaper labor. It's about controlled scalability. Okay. So smart hiring is a profit strategy. Just know that. Hiring impacts your revenue capture, your capacity utilization, customer experience, right? So if you want to be better at customer experience, then you have to hire right. Team morale, right? If you have a toxic individual that's working for you and they just are bringing everybody down in the organization, that brings the team down, right? And owner freedom. Ask yourself this question: could you step away from your business for a week? Most of you said, I can't even step away for a day, right? And that should be your goal, to have everything in place, to have a good team so that you can go on family vacations. You can go on vacations without you having to worry about if the business is running efficiently. Okay. So know that if you hire reactively, you bleed margin. If you hire strategically, you scale cleanly. If your phone feels chaotic, if dispatch feels reactive, if you're stepping back into operations, then that's a problem, right? You don't need more stress. You just need a process, a structured hiring process that's fixable, okay? Guys, thank you for joining me today on this webinar. I am actually going to leave my QR code here so that way you can set up a time with me. Whether you are an existing client of ours, love to kind of go through maybe now that you've had your remote team member, 5 months, 6 months, like what's your next strategic move, right? Or maybe you're new to this and you need help designing your key performance indicators, reach out to me. Or if you want to start with hiring right out of the gate smart, hey, schedule time with me. We'll go through your business and decide what we need to do right now. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you next time.